Mars surface targeted. Safety
Would you
mechanism
like me to
activated.
disable the safety protocol?
Have you ever heard a weapon fire and just knew that something was about to be erased from existence? In 1993, there was a moment when this happened and changed gaming forever. A single pixelated blast wiped out an entire room full of demons in less than a second. There was just silence, followed by a green flash. That one pull of the trigger rewired what players expected from video game weapons. Veteran Doom players still remember the first time they fired it, how the screen shook, how the music dropped, how the room emptied. And in that moment, everyone understood. This wasn't just any gun, this was the gun. The BFG 9000, arguably the most iconic weapon in video game history. Today, we're diving into what makes the BFG tick, where it came from, its ridiculous firepower, and why demons instinctively flinch when you scroll to weapon slot 7. We're ready to dive in, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Born to break everything. In the early 90s, id Software built Doom around one idea: blow everything up in the most satisfying way possible. Nothing captured that better than the big fucking gun. Yep, that's its real name, not a joke, a mission statement. The first version fired 80 plasma balls that bounced around like deadly confetti, but John Romero scrapped it for looking like Christmas and tanking the game's performance. The fix? A single slow-moving orb of green death that could clear a room in one shot. And it looks like it means business. The BFG 9000's glowing core and heavy futuristic frame leave no room for guessing. While each Doom game tweaks its look slightly, the core silhouette stays the same, and the design tells you that it didn't come to play. How it hits like a truck that's on fire. Now, let's get into what makes this monster tick. In classic Doom, pulling the trigger fires a slow-moving green projectile. That part you can see. What you can't see is the second part of the BFG's attack, which is a secret grid of invisible tracers that spray out in a cone pattern right after you fire. These rays do the real damage, and they're calculated based on your line of sight at the moment the plasma ball hits something. This two-stage effect is what gives the BFG its absurd lethality. If you fire it at a group of enemies while facing them directly, you get the full brunt of both the projectile and the cone damage. It can kill entire rooms full of demons in one shot, and no, not because the orb explodes, but because the engine is secretly blasting everything in front of you with invisible death rays. The closer they are when it hits, the worse it is for them. Push it too far, and it pushes back. Doom 3 took things in a new direction. The BFG became a charged weapon. Holding the trigger longer pumped more energy into the shot, making it even deadlier. But go too far and it would overheat and explode or just vaporize you on the spot. That version felt a little more like a high-risk tool. The power was still there, but now it demanded a little respect. It introduced a layer of strategy that added tension to each shot. Do you risk charging it for maximum damage, or do you just play it safe with a half burn? Also, yes, if you're wondering, that charged shot caused a lot of accidental suicides. Quake's BFG cousins. Even though Quake lives in a different universe, id Software couldn't resist bringing the BFG's DNA over. In Quake 2 and Quake 3 Arena, you get the BFG 10K. The Quake 2 model fires a plasma orb that emits damaging beams towards any enemies it can see while flying. The Quake 3 version, on the other hand, acts more like a souped-up rocket launcher, firing fast-moving plasma orbs that you could even use for rocket jumping. They didn't copy Doom's exact mechanics, but the spirit of chaos and overkill was alive and well in both versions. The 2016 revival and its Mars-based cousin. Fast forward to Doom in 2016, and the BFG 9000 made a brutal comeback. This version sticks closer to Quake 2. Fire it in a crowded arena, and it's like watching dominoes fall in a green-lit apocalypse. The damage beams are visible now, finally showing off the destruction happening in real time. Mechanically, it returned to its roots with some modern upgrades. Upon contact with any surface or enemy, it exploded and sent out energy tendrils that would arc out and seek nearby targets. This feature made it devastating in groups of enemies or when cornered in tight spaces. The visual spectacle alone was jaw-dropping, to say the least. This version was a one-shot kill for nearly every enemy in the game, excluding bosses, and even heavily armored targets were often dropped in seconds. It had its own ammo type, which was separate from the plasma rifle and came with limited shots, so every pull had to be a significant decision. What makes it ultimate? It's not just the damage numbers, it's the way the BFG changes how you think. It's about ending the fight before it begins. Whether you're dealing with a cyber demon, a room full of revenants, or something bigger, the BFG 9000 feels like pressing the panic button, and the explosion is your answer. It's not fair, but it doesn't need to be. The BFG 9000 was built to give players a power fantasy that never gets old, and decades later, it still does exactly that. Doom, the original powerhouse. We know one thing by now, and it's that the BFG 9000 quickly cemented its place as the ultimate weapon in the game because of its insane capacity. Upon impact or after traveling a certain distance, the BFG fired 40 invisible tracers in a wide cone emanating from the player's position at the time of the projectile's detonation. These tracers hit enemies and dealt significant damage, often killing lower-tier demons instantly and severely weakening tougher foes. Because of this mechanic, the weapon's maximum damage potential was only realized when fired close to medium range, rewarding players who got close to their targets before pulling the trigger. It used 40 energy cells per shot, making it costly but well worth it. First found in a secret room in Episode 3, Mission 3, Pandemonium, players were greeted with the legendary message, "You got the BFG 9000. Oh yes. From that point on, its presence in the series was immortalized. Doom 2. Continuation of Destruction. Doom 2 Hell on Earth was released in 1994, and the BFG 9000 returned with its original power and mechanics completely intact. There were no graphical changes or mechanical overhauls, but that wasn't necessary. The weapon was already perfect at what it did. It fired the same iconic green plasma ball, which was, of course, followed by the invisible spray of 40 tracers that damaged enemies in a cone. It retained the same 40-cell energy cost and massive room-clearing potential that made it the most coveted weapon in the first game. This continuity allowed players to carry over their strategic understanding of how best to use the BFG. Smart Doom 2 players learned to use the weapon in tightly packed areas, making the most of the 40 invisible rays that emitted from the player's position after the plasma hit. Its presence became even more essential as the game introduced tougher and more numerous enemies like the Arch-Vile, Revenant, and the infamous Icon of Sin. The BFG 9000 became a cornerstone of gameplay in Doom 2 for carefully planned precision attacks and, well, of course, wiping out hordes of large enemies. The very sight of it in your arsenal was reassuring. A digital Excalibur against the forces of hell. The reappearance in Doom 2 only solidified the BFG's legacy as a central pillar of the Doom experience. Doom 3. 2004, a tactical evolution. When Doom 3 launched in 2004, it brought with it a bold new tone for the franchise because it was leaning into a darker survival horror space tone. Naturally, the BFG 9000 had to evolve with the times. This version of the weapon was redesigned from the ground up to suit the game's gritty, realistic aesthetic. It became an enormous arm-mounted device, glowing ominously with power and looking more like an experimental piece of alien tech than anything from previous games. Functionally, it was a major departure from its predecessors. Doom 3 introduced a charge mechanic. The longer you held the fire button, the more powerful the shot became. That sounds really cool, but it came with the risk of overheating in your hands before exploding. Unlike earlier versions, the BFG 9000 fired a dense green plasma orb that emitted powerful rays towards enemies before exploding. The weapon had its own exclusive ammo type, BFG cells, which were rare and valuable. So you see, you really gotta think carefully before unleashing it, because it's no longer about brute force alone, because it demanded awareness and risk management as well. Doom Eternal Amplified Arsenal. Players first encountered its larger sibling, the BFG 10,000, a planetary-scale weapon mounted on the surface of Phobos. During a dramatic early mission, the Doomslayer uses the BFG 10,000 to blast a hole through the Red Planet. From the wreckage of the orbital cannon, he retrieves the BFG 9000, instantly setting the tone for the weapon's mythic status. Design-wise, the BFG 9000 was a refined version of its 2016 self with ominous green power. Functionally, it remained largely unchained but was polished to perfection. It fired a gigantic green plasma bolt. After the impact, electrical tendrils leapt from the projectile, electrocuting and disintegrating every enemy nearby. The devastation was so extreme that it could clear entire arenas with one shot. Its sheer power was balanced by its extreme rarity. The weapon required its own specific ammo, and BFG rounds were sparingly scattered throughout the game. It was mapped to its own dedicated key that was separate from the regular weapon wheel, hence emphasizing its role as an emergency trump card. The weapon also shared its slot with the Unmaker once unlocked, but the BFG remained the king of room-clearing carnage. In Doom Eternal, the BFG 9000 wasn't just a weapon, using it was an event. Doom: The Dark Ages 2025. The Rise of the Ballistic Force Crossbow. In Doom: The Dark Ages, the traditional BFG 9000 doesn't return in name, but its legacy is reborn in the form of the Ballistic Force Crossbow, or the BFC. This new weapon reflects the medieval-inspired theme of the game and replaces high-tech weaponry with ancient arcane equivalents. The BFC is a formidable armament used by the Knight Sentinels, firing massive eldritch lances capable of unleashing devastating destruction. First found in Chapter 14, Spire of Nerethal, the BFC functions similarly to the classic BFG that is designed to wipe out enemies. The BFC operates with limited ammunition, and players initially carry only 3 lances, though this can be later upgraded to 4. Ammunition is scarce to reinforce strategic use of the weapon. Looks-wise, the BFC blends dark fantasy and supernatural energy, with its frame pulsing with ancient magic. While not explicitly branded as the BFG, its mechanics and impact make it a spiritual successor. The weapon fits the tone of the Dark Ages beautifully, which very likely adds a fresh twist to the mythos. Real-life inspiration, from plastic toy to pixelated legend. One of the most surprising and delightful pieces of trivia about the BFG 9000 is that its now iconic design wasn't the product of high-end concept art or industrial military schematics, but rather inspired by a children's toy. Specifically, a gaudy, oversized plastic blaster known as the Creatoy Roar Gun, which was released in the early 1990s. The developers at id Software were known for their innovative and scrappy approach and found inspiration in the ordinary. So, you can imagine how a bright, loud toy was turned into one of the most feared virtual weapons in gaming history. The Creatoy Roar Gun was a toy that featured a bulbous frame of multiple barrels and exaggerated curves. Now, these may be design choices that, while intended to appeal to kids, inadvertently mirrored the over-the-top aesthetic of sci-fi weaponry. When id Software was developing Doom in 1993, they needed a powerful new weapon that would visually stand out from the rest of the arsenal. Instead of spending time and resources creating a physical model from scratch, they used what they had. John Romero and his team took photographs of the Roar Gun, capturing it from various angles under different lighting conditions. What makes this origin even more fitting is how it aligns with the spirit of the Doom franchise itself. Doom was never about photorealism or restrained realism. It thrived on excess, attitude, and spectacle. The BFG 9000 needed to be ridiculous. After all, it was a big fucking gun. Its exaggerated size fit right into the game's aesthetic of demon carnage and over-the-top violence. And, as ironic as it is, what made the toy silly in a real-world context made it perfect in the context of a game where hell was breaking loose. The inspiration behind the BFG 9000 also serves as a reminder of id Software's resourcefulness. At a time when digital 3D modeling was still in its infancy and budgets were limited, the team leveraged physical items like office supplies, toys, and more to serve as the basis for many of their in-game assets. The BFG wasn't the only weapon crafted this way, but it's certainly the most memorable. In the decades since, the BFG 9000 has gone through many redesigns, but that original 1993 Spite is rooted in the frame of a $10 toy gun, and it remains iconic. Cultural impact. The BFG 9000's legacy across pop culture. The BFG 9000 is a full-blown pop culture phenomenon rather than just being a hit in the video game industry. Its sheer size, devastating firepower, and the cheeky acronym, Big Fucking Gun, have made it an absolute legend. Hollywood's take. The Doom movie 2005. When Doom was adapted into a live-action film in 2005 starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the BFG 9000 had to make an appearance. There was no question about it. The movie tried to give the weapon a more realistic military origin by rebranding it the Bioforce Gun to avoid dropping an F-bomb in a mainstream movie. But, of course, despite the sanitized name, The weapon was instantly recognizable because it retained its monstrous scale and energy discharge. When the Rock's character stumbles upon it, it's introduced like a sacred relic with dramatic lighting and some humming. While the film itself received mixed to poor reviews, the inclusion of the BFG 9000 became one of its most memorable and talked about moments. For longtime players, seeing it realized in live action was a bizarre but satisfying moment of validation. The gun had become a canon in Hollywood sci-fi. A weapon so iconic, it cloned itself. The influence of the BFG 9000 in the realm of gaming is impossible to overstate. It effectively birthed the entire trope of the super weapon or panic button gun in first-person shooters. Developers across studios and franchises couldn't resist paying homage or perhaps outright stealing the idea. Take Quake 2, which introduced the BFG 10K. It functions similarly, unleashing massive damage in a charged burst. Then there's Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus, which gave us a shoulder-mounted energy cannon that clearly channels the spirit of the BFG. The Fallout franchise got in on the act too. While it doesn't use the exact name, weapons like the Fat Man, which is a portable mini nuke launcher, are spiritual successors to the BFG. They're massive, and let's just say they turn the tide of battle in a single shot. Even more playful nods can be found in games like Ratchet & Clank, Borderlands, Mass Effect, Saints Row, and Destiny, all of which feature hilariously over-the-top weapons, clearly taking inspiration from Doom's mega gun. BFG as a pop culture reference. The BFG has become shorthand for the biggest and baddest tool in your arsenal. It's now a permanent part of the geek lexicon. You'll find it referenced in forums, memes, fan art, and even non-gaming contexts. Tech blogs jokingly refer to high-powered tools or new GPU releases as the BFG of their category. It's a metaphor for unrestrained power and absolute overkill. Even outside of the entertainment industry, the term has slipped into corporate presentations and defense discussions, often used informally to describe solutions that are extreme or definitive. When something is the BFG of data centers, you know what that means. It's the nuclear option. Modern gaming and continuing influence. Newer Doom titles like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal have only reinforced the BFG's place in pop culture. The weapon's modern redesign retained its iconic presence with apocalyptic energy blasts. Players still feel a primal thrill when they hear the familiar charge-up sound and watch an entire room of demons vanish in green hellfire. Developers today still borrow from the BFG's design philosophy when crafting ultimate weapons. The BFG 9000 did all of that first, and honestly, we think it did it best. Marvelous verdict! The BFG 9000 is a cultural monolith forged in pixelated fire. From its humble toy-inspired sprite beginnings to its reign as gaming's ultimate trump card, it redefined what a big gun could be. Its influence has echoed through every genre where blowing things up is even remotely an option. So, next time you're cornered in hell and the odds are against you, remember, when all else fails, press that button and let the big green glow do the talking. So what's your favorite version of the BFG? Is it the BFG 10,000? The Bioforce Cannon? The big crossbow? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more such deep dives. Until next time, stay sharp and stay safe. We'll catch you in the next one.